All right, students in class 5, we are back for another round of physical geography. So let's go ahead and take out your reading. It says chapter 6, but in lesson 3, but it's still on. We're working through Oceania. We're looking at bodies of water because it is surrounded by water. It's very, very important. Let me look over here real quick. Actually, I have a repeated question from last week and this week. I did not realize I did that. So, on this week's, or from not last week, but the last set of questions, there is a repeat. So, see if you can find it. Let me see. I want to make sure I get all the information to you. All right, let's get reading. It says about 190 miles southwest of Guam, near the southernmost point of the Mariana Trench, a small depression at the ocean bottom is a small depression in the ocean bottom called Challenger Deep. This narrow slot is the deepest known point in the oceans, approximately 36,000 feet below the surface, which is 7,000 feet lower than Mount Everest is high. Okay, so here's sea level, right? Mount Everest is about 29,900 feet, about so. Well, this place is 36,000 feet below. So it's more than a mile down further than Mount Everest is higher. That's crazy. It says the Mariana Trench, the 1,600-mile ocean gorge in which Challenger Deep lies, is itself the deepest trench in the world, with many places measuring well below 25,000 feet. Yet Challenger Deep plunges thousands of feet lower into a basin possibly formed by tectonic movements through the centuries. Honestly, they really don't know because it's very hard to get things down there to study them, and we'll go over that in a minute. Little is known about the spot or the larger area surrounding it. 3 descents have been made, the first in 1960 and the most recent in 2009, and different depth measurements have been registered, leaving the precise elevation measurement uncertain. These missions have reported various simple life forms, including simple-celled organisms and small shrimp and sea cucumbers. The pressure at the bottom is estimated at 1,100 times the surface pressure, which makes descents a precarious task. So this is what that means. Because of the fact that it's so far down under, when you go down into water, there's pressure from the water that's coming down on you. You don't feel it in like a pool or even swimming necessarily in the lake, but if you go down deeper, you begin to feel that pressure. So if you go down all the way down to the bottom where that is, that's 36,000 feet below the surface, you've got 36,000 feet of water pushing down on you. And that means it's 1,100 times the surface pressure that we experience right now. So that means that if I am pushing down like this, imagine let me start that over. So imagine 1 pound pressing on your hand. Now imagine 1,100 pounds pressing on your hand. That's what it would feel like if you were in the water. It would crush you. And so these different marine lives, these different types of shrimps and what are they called? What did we say? Single-celled organisms, small shrimp, and sea cucumbers. These animals that live down there, that's how the Lord made them to live. And they wouldn't survive up here because they survive down there because they are designed and built to survive at 1,100 feet below sea level. They aren't meant and made to survive up here. They would probably actually die because of the difference. Because for them, 11,000 or 1,100 pounds of pressure, or however you would say it, that's normal for them. So they can survive and thrive like that. Up here, there wouldn't be enough pressure on them and they might actually explode, which is kind of interesting. But it says no sunlight penetrates the water at these depths, meaning that seeing enabled life forms that makes their homes there are fully reliant on senses other than sight. So these creatures can't see anything because there's no light that gets down that far. And so when they've taken cameras down there, and actually it's pretty cool because some of these animals are glow in the dark, they're iridescent. And I'll see if I can find a video to send out to y'all for that. Even though it's not really physical geography, it's still an amazing thing that the Lord designed and made. It says, in spite of best efforts, oceanographers and marine biologists around the world, the oceans continue to be one of the most mysterious parts of the world. Somewhat ironic, given that they cover 70% of the Earth's surface. So, very interesting thing. Water covers 70% of the Earth's surface, yet it's still one of the most unexplored areas in the world. So all of this surface, all of this water in the world, a lot of it is unexplored. We don't know what's underneath. There could be creatures, thousands of creatures that live in the oceans that we just haven't found them yet. And it's something we have to consider and think about. So, same things as in the rainforest and the jungles. We are discovering new animals and species of things every single day in the rainforest just because they're so unexplored. But the water is even less explored. It says the deeper areas, such as Challenger Deep, are even less studied as the environmental challenges pose major hazards to researchers. Yet the Mariana Trench is one of the most fascinating points in Oceania's oceans. The rivers and lakes in Australia are nearly as intriguing. Australia features many long and important rivers, despite most of its country desert. So this is very interesting, is that Australia is mostly desert, but it's got rivers that go all throughout it. So in the midst of being desert, the Lord has provided the means or the ability for the continent of Australia to have water. Is that even though it might be mostly desert, there's still water that you can get and water that's provided for people to live there and for businesses to function and for commerce and things like that, because you have to have water if you want to survive. It's also interesting because that area also gets, tropical rains. So they'll have, even though it's a desert, they'll have times during the year and maybe every few years where they get these massive storms that provide water and refill I think they're called aquifers, which are watering places underneath the earth that provide water to the surface. And so even though it might be a desert continent, there's still water that the Lord has provided for plants, animals, and humans to survive and thrive there. It says, while Oceania takes its name from the large open portions of ocean that surround its many islands, the water encircling the land actually takes many forms, from vast stretches of unbroken Pacific to tiny inlets and lagoons. It is all the same water, of course. These inlets and lagoons are ultimately connected to larger ones, which in turn connected to gulfs and seas, which eventually spill into the enormous body of water that comprises world's 4 oceans. But to make things easy, cultures and regions have given specific names to the smaller bodies nearby land masses. In the northwest, the island of New Guinea is bordered on the north by the Pacific Ocean, technically the South Pacific, because it is below the equator. Flung off the northeast coast of Papua New Guinea is the Bismarck Archipelago, a Papua New Guinea territory. These islands enclose the Bismarck Sea, a small body rich in mineral deposits. South of these islands, between Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, lies the Solomon Sea. West of Papua New Guinea's peninsula, tucked between Port Moresby and Daru, is the Gulf of Papa. Papua New Guinea, Papa. The Gulf of Papa. Not P-A-P-A, but P-A-P-U-A. So I'm going to let y'all read the rest of this and work through your questions. Again, these questions are the questions about terrain and about water there. they're a bit easier, they're a bit more straightforward, so I don't feel like I've got to go through and read all of this to you, but you can find the answers for many of these. One question, actually, I am going to go over right now because of the fact I don't think I marked it correctly. It says number 7, why would it be difficult in unifying the islands of Oceania? So let's talk about things that bring people together. So culture brings people together, language brings people together, religion brings people together. So the difficulty in that is many of these islands are actually made up of different people groups and different nations. And so if you're going to try to unify them, you've got to find a unifying factor. And many of them have their own religions, they have their own customs, they have their own belief systems, they have their own languages. It's incredibly fast, and we don't really understand this because we live in a time and an age where we communicate with people all around the world in 1 or 2 or 3 different languages. At that time, if you went off and you went and explored, you could go off, or if you go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years, and you had someone who decided to leave China and go exploring into this area where Australia is, and they left and they didn't have any communication, or they had a group of people that left and went there, and they didn't have any communication with anybody else for 200-300 years, they could very easily have developed their own language that would no longer be understandable to the people they left. Is that language can actually change and develop that quickly. So even though, what was the question? So unifying Oceania is actually pretty difficult because of the fact they don't share those commonalities. Plus, there aren't land masses to bring people together. They're all separated. Now, they're coming together much more because of the ease of transportation now and because of the ease of communication. But 200 years ago, these people were living in isolated islands that may not have ever seen outsiders for hundreds or possibly 1,000 years. So they had developed everything their own and uniquely. So that's why it would have been very hard, and it has been very hard to unify those islands into one group. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and stop. I believe we've gone long enough. Go ahead and finish up the questions, finish up the reading. If you've got any more questions, let me know, and I will try to do my best to answer what it is you're wondering about. So, hope everything is good, and have a good day.